more. So supposing actually, if we move on a bit, supposing we've been through that quantification exercise and we've settled on the kind of parameters of where we believe the valuation is likely to be, so that we can then hopefully, like I say, have those fruitful discussions and try and reach a speedy settlement in relation to financial claims, which is always the ultimate goal. I mean, what other considerations are there? I'm just thinking that if the asset or those assets themselves form the large majority of what we're going to call the matrimonial wealth, are there any other considerations? Because within that procedure, there may be a need to actually redistribute the wealth in some way, and what considerations will we be looking at there?
I think that the important issue is that once the value has been ascertained, it's how that can be paid out to the spouse. So there may very well be a figure which is attributed to the overall value of the artist's repertoire, and then the job of the lawyers, the accountants, the courts is to work a solution with actually paying that value out to the spouse and how that can be achieved. So one of the areas that is now highly sought after is the sale of some of those rights, which may generate a lump sum, which could therefore provide finance to the artist to pay off a spouse, or they might not wish to sell their catalogue because most artists are quite a lot of artists actually are protective of their art form. They may not wish to sell it, but they may wish to monetize it in some form or another, which may be that they will give it security for a loan. So our big dilemma will, once we've worked out the value, is how can we monetize that? How can we actually provide the figure that is required? If it's a lump sum payment, how's that going to work? Or if it's going to be over a period of time, how is that going to be financed by the artist to their spouse?
Yeah, and obviously they're played into that as well. You're looking at tax considerations as well, because
yes,
it's not easy to convert an asset and not be hit with some sort of tax liability as a result of it. So factoring that in, it's trying to find what is the most cost effective but also the most tax effective way of monetizing it, as you say.
Exactly. And there are other important criteria to look at that same time. There might be certain restrictions on sales. There might be restrictions on being able to just give a spouse a certain amount of money because of the way in which the rights are held, whether that's corporately or personally. So all of that has to be examined in order to give the spouse a level of certainty and reliability that that money is going to be paid to them, whether that be as a lump sum or an annuity over a period of time.
Yeah, exactly. And the other, I mean, like you say as well, the options around selling or transferring or anything like that are very much going to be considered last resort, and more often than not, they would within court proceedings as well, within divorce proceedings, because the last thing that anyone wants to do is have to dispose of assets to settle claims. That, you know, look at all the various opportunities that lie elsewhere. And as you say, an artist's catalogue is their absolute baby. It's for the majority of them, you know, they're more precious about that than anything else in their life. So
they fiercely want to protect it, but there are times when it may be appropriate, and we've had circumstances where an element of the repertoire could be monetized. So there are so many different ways of doing this, and it doesn't have to be an outright sale. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Musician copyright, master recording rights are made up of so many various different elements that without being too detail orientated, you could monetize some of those, but not all of those.
Yeah,
and that could enable a sum to be obtained.
Yeah, I suppose the ultimate takeaway is there's no one size fits all approach with any of this.
Absolutely.
absolutely tailored to the individual circumstances. I suppose to close, are there any kind of top tips that you might have to artists who are looking at the valuation of their businesses or business commercial interests, should I say, and rights and royalties, or and going through that procedure? What would you say is top tip to begin with?
I think it's going that divorce is costly, as we all know.
Yeah.
So in one form or another, they are going to have to, especially if the rights were generated during the marriage. I think there might be other areas whereby product or rights are generated pre-marriage, which may have to be excluded from any settlement that is reached. But if it is for a period of time that the marriage was worked and product was generated, then all those assets are going to have to be valued, and they are going to, in some form or another, be monetized to provide a spouse with their financial reward. And an artist is going to have to provide a fair amount of fairly detailed documentation and information for that procedure to apply.
Yeah, you're absolutely right to talk about that kind of exploratory exercise going between what is, I suppose, technically matrimonial and what is technically non-matrimonial. And those are arguments in law as well. And those are open for discussions between lawyers as a result to try and get to that kind of agreement that we're all endeavouring to get to. I suppose actually all of that points towards the fact that the earlier the advice and the more detail you can provide, the better, because there's this sense of empowerment it gives you within discussions, so that you have everything in front of you laid out, you have an understanding of it, and you can then derive confidence off the back of that, I suppose.
And also the amount of information nowadays that can be gleaned, can be generated now, it's fairly large. So whether that is information on the internet, whether it's royalty statements, whether it's accountings, whether it's future tours, past tours. So there is a lot of information that can be obtained, which is in the public domain as well as private. And all of that needs to be looked at to understand the overall financial worth of that artist.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Very well put and succinctly at the end there as well, Stephen. So thank you for that. I suppose thank you very much for joining me. I know it's been short and sweet, but we didn't want to go into too much detail because of the fact that it can become extremely complicated and complex. So I think certainly the information you've shared has been very, very useful and very helpful for those who are in the industry and who may or may not be within divorce proceedings or contemplating them. So thank you for your help there.
Thank you, Neil.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Well, you're entirely welcome. Moving forward, obviously, if anyone does have any queries, I would implore them to speak with you, get in touch with SRLV in general. You are comfortably, obviously, one of the best accountancy firm in the UK for dealing with these kind of situations. So that would be my real sort of final suggestion at the end, to say have a chat with you guys, because you'd be more than willing to help. And also, I said at the start, you do the court expert stuff as well. So I know you've been involved in a few cases now in relation to providing expert advice and evidence to the court to assist the court. And I suppose it's only right that I say you're all the more willing and ready to help in that scenario too.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, look, thank you very much, Stephen. And I hope for those who've seen this, they found it useful and helpful. And like I say, any more information, get in touch. The website will have the details to be able to do that.
Thank you.